A lot of people only remember Big Jim as that super affectionate, upbeat, soft-hearted little cat who's always overflowing with good vibes and completely obsessed with any sugary treat. But behind that cheerful attitude, there's a heavy journey filled with heartbreak that almost nobody realizes exists: parents. And many Dogman fans don't remember, but everything is connected to the parents of our beloved purple cat and the tragic fate they suffered. Maybe one of the reasons Captain Cupcake always tries to keep that giant smile on his face is exactly because of all the pain he carries from childhood. Even when everything in his life was falling apart, he tried to cling to any spark of positivity, so he wouldn't drown in painful memories. When he was still very young, the future cellmate of Petey was known as Little Jim. He lived with his father and his mother, whose names were never revealed, in a peaceful routine in OK City, one of those simple families that just want a quiet life. But everything changed the day a terrible accident happened. The three of them were out for a drive when, for reasons still unknown, Little Jim's dad lost control of the car. The crash was so violent that it took both adults' lives instantly, leaving the purple kitten completely alone in the world. That devastating moment became the saddest chapter in Big Jim's entire story, and probably the source of all the struggles that followed. With no surviving relatives to take him in, he also lost the home he grew up in, ending up without direction, without shelter, and without protection. Even so, he carried with him all the love his parents had shown, as well as the lessons they taught about choosing to do good even when life doesn't cooperate. Those glasses that look like a hero mask on Big Jim's face, they're not a mask at all. They are actually his mother's glasses, a physical and emotional reminder of everything she represented. Still as a child, while playing with friends and even being locked up in the baby jail during games, Little Jim received those special glasses from his mom. She explained that the best way to face the hard things in life is to turn what's bad into something good whenever possible. And that's exactly the mindset that follows Big Jim throughout his entire journey inside the cat prison. But this is only one piece of the sad and tragic life of our beloved purple cat. Stay with us, because things are about to get even more mind-blowing. The prophecy. Big Jim has always been one of the friendliest and most lovable cats in the entire Dogman universe. That's why fans keep wondering the same mystery. What could possibly make such a kind-hearted character end up in jail? Especially when our eternal Captain Cupcake has always shown nothing but goodness? To truly understand it, we need to take several steps backwards, returning to his childhood, when everything started to go wrong because of a completely misguided prophecy. On what seemed like an ordinary day, a spaceship landed near Big Jim's family home. His parents found a letter left behind by aliens explaining that the child living there had an incredible destiny. He was chosen to help the entire universe, and with the help of a magical object called the Ring of Destiny, would accomplish huge heroic feats. The problem was that the ring wasn't attached to the letter, and the parents never found anything like it. In the comic Big Jim: The Beginning, we discovered that moments before Big Jim's parents understood the message, someone else had already passed by. Crud, Petey's father, crossed paths with the alien and overheard everything. He lied without shame, saying he knew the child mentioned in the prophecy and would deliver the ring to him. But instead, he took the object and gave it to his fiancée, Grace, Petey's future mother, without caring about the consequences. From that moment on, Big Jim's life was flipped upside down. The orphanage. Right after the terrible accident that changed everything, Big Jim woke up in the hospital and immediately received the worst news of his life. His parents were gone and would never return. That kind of pain is something no one simply gets over. While still trying to understand what was happening and recovering from his injuries, the little kitten had an unexpected companion, the future nurse lady. Back then, she was still just a curious child, but already showed the same huge heart she would have years later when she came up with the idea of creating Dogman using Greg the dog's head. During his days in the hospital, she played with the purple kitten, trying to cheer up the little guy who had completely lost his world. But even so, Big Jim's path eventually led him far from there, straight to the Happy Home Shelter Orphanage, located in Bedford Falls near OK City. The place was always overcrowded, full of kids whose lives had also been marked by hardship. But thankfully, the orphanage was run by a woman with an incredibly kind soul named Miss Pierce. Even with almost no resources, she did everything she could to love and care for the children in her charge. Because the orphanage was so full, Big Jim didn't get a real bed and ended up living in Miss Pierce's office. But even after everything he had gone through, he didn't just sit still waiting for life to get better on its own. Little Jim, even as a tiny kitten, noticed that Miss Pierce handled everything alone and desperately needed help. So he began doing small chores around the shelter, from washing dishes to sweeping floors, always trying to lighten her load. This behavior shows, once again, how deeply his mother's lesson stuck with him, transforming a painful moment into something better. Even though he had lost his family and home, the purple kitten never stopped looking for joy and never abandoned his kind nature. But the question everyone keeps asking remains: how did someone so compassionate, dedicated, and sweet end up behind bars in the future? And part of that answer starts with someone very familiar, Petey. If you're enjoying this video, do the smart thing and hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any of our future videos. The prison. Everyone knows Big Jim is an incredibly innocent little cat, full of love to give, and someone who truly believes in the power of friendship. That detail is essential to understand the depth of his story, because Dav Pilkey, the creator of Dogman, uses exactly what Big Jim's mom taught him, turning bad moments into something good, even when it feels impossible. But that opens the door to a huge theory. What if Big Jim isn't as naive as he seems? Not in the sense of being evil, that would be impossible, and we'll explain why very soon. But what if he's actually a secret genius who chooses to stay in prison on purpose? In the Dogman universe, it's totally confirmed that cats face constant prejudice. There's even a prison built just for them, run by the cruel mayor's brother. When you think about that, Big Jim really seems like someone who should never be behind bars, unless he was the victim of an extreme injustice. And that leads to another possibility. There's a very real chance our purple cat is completely innocent of whatever crime the police accused him of. Maybe he chose to live somewhere sad because he felt needed there, just like at the orphanage. Maybe, deep down, this is Big Jim's true mission. He could have committed some extremely minor crime just to get himself locked up. Not out of malice, but because he knew the cats inside needed someone who brought hope. When Petey turned into a villain and kept getting arrested, Big Jim probably understood that his heart brother would need support on the inside. So he may have intentionally done something silly just to be there for Petey and never leave him alone. And there's a detail that gives us a huge clue. When Big Jim became Crud's cellmate, he told a fake story about being imprisoned in the baby jail. He said he was searching for a magic ring, the same one Crud stole from the alien, when a lady thought he had stolen a cookie and had him arrested. But that makes no sense. In Dogman's world, there would never be a baby prison. That would be totally absurd and morally wrong. In other words, Big Jim lied, but he lied by mixing real memories from his own life. This suggests that whatever crime he committed was something similar to stealing candy or sweets, and that does make sense. He's addicted to sugar. But even if he did steal something, it was never out of evil. He did it because he wanted to stay next to his heart brother during the hardest moments of Petey's life. When he arrived in prison, Big Jim also noticed that many cats suffered terribly inside and desperately needed help. In one of the Dogman books, Petey himself notices that the mayor pardoned many inmates, except the cats. This happens in the book For Whom the Ball Rolls. And in Lord of the Fleas, cats protest for a fair and dignified life. Many of them act mean, but probably only because the whole city treats them cruelly. The hero. There's a huge secret about Big Jim that almost no one notices. He knows exactly how to break out of prison. He just chooses not to leave permanently. Have you ever wondered how he manages to help Dogman and Lil Petey save the city even while he's supposedly locked up? The answer is simple. Every night, Big Jim uses a secret passage to sneak out of jail. But because he's such a good guy, he returns before sunrise to keep serving his sentence as if nothing happened. This is strange because the time he has already spent behind bars should be more than enough to grant him freedom, especially considering Petey is already free. While official freedom doesn't arrive, Big Jim embraces his almost secret heroic identity, Captain Cupcake, a hero who believes that almost any evil in the world can be solved with a well-made, colorful cupcake. And let's be honest, is anything more comforting than a cupcake with vibrant frosting? The only thing sweeter is Big Jim himself. Remember how we said there's a reason he can't ever be truly evil? Here's the explanation. When he became Crud's cellmate, the villain built a machine called the Brain-O-Matic. The invention turns anyone into a huge, super strong version of themselves, but it doesn't change their inner feelings. The Brain-O-Matic only magnifies whatever already exists inside you. If you have anger, it gets worse. If you have kindness, it explodes. And when the machine was used on Big Jim, he turned into a giant, muscular titan who only wanted to hug people and give affection. This proves that deep inside, he always was, and always will be, nothing more than a cat full of love. Petey. When Big Jim was still a child, he had no idea his life would be affected over and over again by the chaos caused by Grandpa Crud, Petey's father. While little Jim lived in the orphanage, Crud abandoned his family in a cruel and heartless way. Since he was the one who supported the household, his wife Grace and young Petey, that flat-tailed orange kitten, ended up being kicked out of their home. With nowhere else to go, Grace took little Petey to live in the exact same shelter where Big Jim was trying to rebuild his life after losing his parents. That's where the two boys first met. Grace, who no longer had Crud by her side, began working with Miss Pierce, helping care for the other children living there. Meanwhile, young Petey, still shaken by everything his family had gone through, found in little Jim his very first real friend. When Grace realized that little Jim was a completely alone kitten with no one left in the world, she did what any mother with a huge heart would do. She decided to adopt him, even without having ideal conditions to raise another child. From that moment on, the two continued living in the shelter, but Big Jim finally felt like he had a mother again. That explains why the purple cat never wanted to distance himself from Petey. To him, his cellmate was always more than a friend. He was a soul brother, even when Petey acted rough or distant. Like Bugs Bunny would say, that's all folks. Or is it? We're leaving 2 more videos so you can keep watching with us. And trust me, they're worth it. See you later.